September 1st, 1939. Berlin, Germany. The morning air over Berlin carried the weight of certainty. Church bells rang. Radios crackled with announcements. Across parade grounds and ministries, German commanders studied maps already stained with confidence. Poland would fall in weeks. France would crumble in months. Britain would bend or burn. And across the Atlantic, the United States, distant, divided, and distracted, would remain exactly what Germany believed it to be: an industrial curiosity with no stomach for modern war. In those early days, the German High Command did not merely expect victory, they assumed it. The Wehrmacht had rewritten the rules of warfare in steel and fire. Blitzkrieg was not a tactic, it was a revelation. Tanks moved faster than doctrine. Aircraft did not support armies, they shattered them. Communications flowed downward in rigid order. Yet on the battlefield, German officers thrived on initiative. Speed was worshipped. Decisive action glorified. The world had watched Poland collapse in 35 days, and Europe stood stunned. When France fell in June 1940, it seemed to confirm everything German planners already believed about themselves and about their enemies. The Maginot Line, once hailed as impenetrable, had been bypassed and rendered irrelevant. Paris fell without becoming the inferno of the Great War. In less than a year, Germany had humbled the old powers of Europe. To many German officers, this was not just military success. It was proof of cultural and intellectual superiority. Across staff rooms and mess halls, the jokes began to circulate. America, they said, was a nation of shopkeepers and mechanics, a country obsessed with comfort, speed, and mass production, but incapable of discipline. Its army was small, its officers inexperienced, its people soft. German intelligence reports described a force scattered across continents, armed with outdated equipment, commanded by men who had never faced a modern battlefield. General Franz Halder, chief of the Army General Staff, would later write dismissively of American preparedness. Others echoed the sentiment more bluntly. The Americans, they believed, might build machines, but they could not fight wars. Not this kind of war. Not the fast, ruthless, mechanized conflict Germany had mastered. Even Adolf Hitler, who feared few enemies, did not consider the United States a serious military threat in the short term. In his mind, America was a racial mixture lacking unity. Its democracy made decisive action impossible. Its people, spoiled by abundance, would never endure the sacrifices required by total war. If the United States did enter the conflict, it would arrive late, clumsily, and without resolve. This belief was not unique to Hitler. It permeated German strategic thinking. War, as Germany understood it, was about decisive battles, about encirclement and destruction. It was about breaking the enemy's army, seizing territory and forcing surrender. Industry mattered, yes, but only to sustain the battlefield. War was won at the front. America, on the other hand, had not yet revealed how it intended to fight. In September 1940, as German bombers pounded London night after night, American factories were still technically at peace. Yet something was already stirring. Orders began to flow. Steel allocations shifted. Assembly lines lengthened. The Lend-Lease Act, passed in March 1941, allowed the United States to become what President Franklin D. Roosevelt carefully called the arsenal of democracy. To Germany, this was little more than rhetoric, a political gesture meant to support Britain without provoking open war. German naval officers, watching American-built ships escort British convoys, expressed irritation, not alarm. The Kriegsmarine had its U-boats. The Atlantic, they believed, was already under German control. Admiral Karl Dönitz was confident. Submarines were sinking merchant ships faster than Britain could replace them. America's involvement, he assumed, would only delay the inevitable. And yet, beneath the surface of German confidence, there was a fundamental misunderstanding taking root. Germany was fighting a war of speed and shock. America was preparing for a war of scale. By 1941, Germany was already stretched. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, unleashed on June 22nd, had consumed men, fuel, and steel at an unprecedented rate. The Eastern Front devoured divisions whole. For every kilometer gained, the Wehrmacht paid in blood. Yet even as supply lines strained and winter loomed, German commanders remained focused on the immediate battlefield. The war, they believed, would still be decided by campaigns, not by calendars. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Germany faced a choice. Hitler declared war on the United States 4 days later, convinced it was a formality. He believed America would now be forced to divide its attention between Europe and the Pacific, weakening its impact. He also believed, fatally, that Germany could defeat the Soviet Union before American power truly arrived. In Berlin, the reaction was almost casual. War with America, yes, but not yet a problem. What German commanders did not grasp was that America did not think in terms of immediate victory. It thought in terms of inevitability. The United States did not ask how quickly it could win. It asked how completely. By early 1942, American shipyards were producing Liberty ships at a pace that stunned observers. One every few days, then every few hours. Entire aircraft factories rose from empty fields. Detroit, once the heart of automobile production, became an engine of armored warfare. Tanks rolled off assembly lines in numbers Germany could not imagine matching. Not better tanks. Not faster tanks. Just more, endlessly more. German intelligence reports noted the figures, but commanders dismissed them. Numbers, they argued, meant nothing without experience. Quantity without quality would crumble under fire. American troops, when they finally arrived in Europe or North Africa, would panic. They would break. They always did, according to the myths Germany told itself. The first American ground forces to face German troops did so in North Africa in late 1940s Operation Torch brought U.S. soldiers into direct contact with seasoned Wehrmacht units. The results at first seemed to validate German assumptions. At Kasserine Pass in February 1943, American forces were outmaneuvered, outgunned, and humiliated. German commanders watched as inexperienced U.S. units retreated in disorder. It was confirmation, proof the Americans were amateurs. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, observing American behavior, reportedly noted their lack of tactical cohesion. German officers wrote home describing American soldiers as brave but poorly led. The verdict seemed clear. The United States could produce equipment, but it could not yet produce warriors. What those reports failed to capture was what happened next. The American response to failure was not denial. It was adaptation. Within weeks, command structures changed. Ineffective officers were removed. Training intensified. Doctrine evolved. Logistics were re-examined. The United States Army did not cling to pride. It did not protect tradition for tradition's sake. It absorbed lessons with brutal efficiency. Mistakes were analyzed, cataloged, and corrected. German commanders had faced enemies who collapsed, enemies who resisted stubbornly, and enemies who fought desperately. They had not faced an enemy that treated war like an engineering problem, one that could be solved with enough data, enough material, and enough time. By the spring of 1943, signs of this difference were becoming visible. American units returned to the field better coordinated, better supplied, and supported by an industrial backbone that seemed inexhaustible. When equipment was lost, it was replaced. When men were wounded, new units arrived. The flow never stopped. Still, German confidence persisted. After all, Germany still held Europe. U-boats still prowled the Atlantic. The Luftwaffe, though battered, remained dangerous. And on the Eastern Front, millions of German soldiers continued to fight with ferocity and discipline. The belief remained that America would tire, that public opinion would fracture, that democratic patience would fail before German endurance did. This belief, this laughter, this underestimation would become one of the greatest strategic errors of the war. Because while Germany fought for territory, America fought for momentum. While Germany measured success in kilometers gained, America measured it in factories completed. While Germany counted victories by battles won, America counted them by systems built. The two nations were fighting entirely different wars, and only one of them understood that fact. As 1943 unfolded, the distance between German perception and American reality began to narrow, not through revelation, but through pressure. Pressure on supply lines, pressure on airspace, pressure on time itself. German commanders would soon realize that the war they had mastered was no longer the war being fought. But for now, in the early years, they still laughed. They laughed at American tanks. They laughed at American pilots. They laughed at American logistics. They did not yet understand that the laughter was temporary and the consequences permanent.